Good morning or good evening, however you're finding me today. If you're joining me live or you're watching this on a recording, I want to thank you very much for joining in to our automation webinar series. My name is Zachary Stank. I am the product manager for Control Safety at I/O here in the United States. And today's topic is PSR modular diagnostics, connecting via PROFINET via PLCnext 2152. A little bit of ground rules before we start. As always, this is a one-way conversation. You will not be able to chat back with me or connect in via video. However, there is a question and answer bubble at the top of your screen. You should be able to ask questions. I will try to answer them as best as I can while I'm presenting. At the end of the time, if I don't get to your question while we're going through it, I will come back and answer questions as we go, as is possible. The other thing here is if you're watching this on recording, thank you for joining us. You joined us at phoenixcontact.com/US-webinars. If you haven't signed up already, there's a number of open webinars that you can go sign up on, and you can view any past webinar directly from that web page just by clicking on the watch replay button. So without further ado, today we're going to get started. It should take about 25 to 30 minutes to go through my small presentation here, develop a small program, and then go into the PLCnext engineer software and show how to connect. So let's get started. So a quick reminder, if you didn't join me on my last webinar where I went through developing your first your first PSR modular project, the PSR modular is a configurable safety module. It's highly adaptable. It can go from e-stops to light curtains, but also enables safe speed and analog right on the same backplane. It's a powerful software with easy configuration. It's got advanced capabilities and intuitive function blocks. And the diagnostics, which we're covering today, can connect to all the automation product protocols and minimize downtimes due to comprehensive diagnostics. So if we look at what the PSR modular allows you to connect, first it starts with the base modules. So the MB1 and the MB2 are your base modules today. I'm using a B1. The B1 has a little bit less memory than the B2, and if you're using the analog connections, you're going to need to use the B2 module. The B1 cannot connect to analog. Then we have all of our fail-safe expansion modules, so different types of I/O, safety mats, relay outputs, and all of our analog module as well is in this as well. And then we have our safe expansion modules for safe motion, so overspeed, underspeed, and then standstill. If you want to use these, it can be worked on either base module, and then they come in different configurations depending on if you're going to use proximity switches or you're going to use encoders and how many encoders you want to incorporate. And then finally, the big thing we're going to talk about today is our gateways. So we have different gateways for all the major protocols that exist. There are videos for how to incorporate these gateways at each downloads page. I will cover that when I'm done with the presentation. But just know that you can go through an example with one of our specialists. It's typically Carsten Gregorius in Germany walking through all of these. But there is examples on every one of the download pages. So before we start, we're also going to talk a little bit about the software. Again, I'm not going to go in depth into it. I'm going to quickly build a project, load it onto my my PSR modular that I have sitting here at my desk, and then I'll show you how to go through and do the bus conf software as well to get your gateway ready. So a couple of quick applications where this is key. The first one being machine tools, a lot of machine tooling machines. You'll have e-stops, guard locking, interlocking of sliding doors, hold to run, or some people call them dead man switches. And then also you'll have outputs like hybrid motor starters, things like that. You might even have mode selectors for automatic, manual, or maintenance mode. It's a perfect opportunity to use the PSR modular. Again, it's small form factor, and connectivity to all different protocols really helps in making a good machine. Then we get into packaging. Packaging is very similar. Again, you have lots of sliding doors, start, restart buttons, e-stops, there's hold to runs. Again, doing PSR modular will help out with that, and highlighting here Ethernet IP, because especially here in the US, packaging runs primarily on Ethernet IP, but you could see it on EtherCAT and PROFINET. And then finally, when we're talking about the differences that PSR modular brings, allowing for analog monitoring for process applications is really key. Flow, level, pressure, temperature, all these measurements are possible. Again, doing safe analog input on such a low cost, small size platform where typically you'd be running $15,000 just for the control end to do safe analog, you can now start at just around $1,600 investment on the hardware. Again, the software is free, so there's no investment on that side, and you can do different types of analog. So 4 channels, 0 to 20, 0 to 10, and you can do mathematical operations as well. And finally, the last thing that is good for a lot of different industries here is a daisy chain principle. You can connect multiple PSR modular masters together through what's called the, I'll show you when we get there. It's a communication block. It is really nice that you can have a line e-stop so that you can connect multiple sections of a machine together in a really simple and intuitive way. So let's talk about the gateway modules. Like I said, we come with all the different protocols, all the relevant networks included: Profibus, Profinet, CC-Link, EtherCAT, Ethernet IP, DeviceNet, Modbus TCP, and CAN. This is a bidirectional unit, so not only are you sending information from the safety PSR modular to your controller for diagnostics, you're also getting information from the controller to operate really simple, non-safe types of enunciation. So if you're going to do some lights or something like that, if you want it to go into a different mode, you can have a siren go off. And you can do that through these bidirectional communication bits. And we'll cover that a little bit in a few minutes here. So if you have more questions about PSR modular or the software, like I said, I previously did building your first PSR modular software that you can go and watch on our replay channel. You can also reach out to your local specialist or your local ASE here in the United States. And you can also call into our technical service line. We have a really robust safety support for technical service. So any of those are good to go. So let me just switch gears here and I can start sharing the software. So let me bring it up. So this is PSR modular software. Right now I've started a new project. You can see I've named it already, PSR modular diagnostic for PLCnext. The first thing you need to do is select your base module. I'm selecting a V1 because that's what I have over here. And then you can select all of your IO modules. You can see that since I selected V1, it took out some modules. So the EF1 is not there and the EF7 is not there. The B1 cannot do the analog, so that's EF7. And then there's a split output module that allows you to individually control your outputs. The EF1, the B1 cannot use that one either. So I don't have any other modules in my setup here. I just have a single base module. So I'm going to go to Gateway. And then when I go to Gateway, I just need to select Profinet because that's what I'm using today. But you can select any of these depending on what you're trying to communicate. I'm going Profinet today. So I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm brought to my configuration screen. So on my setup over here, it's pretty simple. I have one e-stop, right? And let me snap to grid because it makes me happy. All right, so well, I already had it on. So snap to grid. So I have an e-stop. It's actually a 2-channel e-stop. So I click on the box, switch it to double channel, 2 normally closed contacts. I will assign where they are input. I've already pre-wired this, so they're input at input 1 and input 2. You can see when I do that, it automatically assigns the input to input 2 and tells me where I need to connect it. I'm also using the output test on these. So I'm using B1 here and B1 test 2 here. You can see the tests also tell you where to wire. So when it comes to wiring this, it's very visual within the software. Okay, and then the output side, all I have is 2 outputs, so pretty simple stuff. Let me go down to output. I use my dual output because this is the type of output that this module will use. Again, I like to organize all of my inputs and outputs, so we'll do that. I go right to my output, and then I can add some resets if I want. I can enable monitoring, but I'm just going to set my outputs to O1A, and then it automatically assigns O1B. So a pretty simple setup there, nothing too crazy going on, but because I'm using the gateway, I have some options now where I could have some inputs or outputs coming out of here. So for example, let's take this output EQ here. Let's say I wanna specifically know when this e-stop is connected or disconnected. Now, when I go to the diagnostics page, I will get all of the inputs and outputs enunciated here. But what I'm looking for is this specific e-stop. So for example, if I had a number of e-stops coming on here, or let's say it wasn't the e-stop, I wanted to make sure if there was an error. So let me disconnect this piece. Disconnect it. So I wanted to do the error output, and this is probably better. So here's an error output now. I've selected the error output, which means that if either of these inputs don't switch together, or I have something going wrong with my test pulses here, the error will energize. I can now send that error output directly up to my controller via the gateway, right? And I will do that with this EQ button. I'll select bit 0 here. So now I can get the error out there. And then I could add other inputs and outputs if I wanted to. Let me get to so I have a monitoring output here. Let's say I have something in my logic that I want to enable, right? So when we just do a standard stop, okay, not an emergency stop, I'm going to enable something that's tied to this monitoring output on my B1. Let's call it'll be a, just a light. Okay, so this is a light. I have a separate monitoring output that comes on my B1, right? Again, it's connection number 8. And that is going to be, of course, enunciated by an external variable here. So we'll make that bit 0 from the input side. So now I've enunciated a couple of variables. I have some things going on in here. It's no longer just a simple e-stop. I'm also doing some enhanced diagnostics with it. So I will check and validate. That's OK. Now I'm going to plug USB mini into my PSR modular. Let me do that. You can see once I plugged it in, the connection came up here. I'm going to log on to my PSR modular. If you have any questions about the password or what the default password is, you can find that in our documentation. It's SafePass, all uppercase. And we also recommend that you change that once you're doing it. So I validated, I'm connected. So now I'm going to send my configuration down. Hit that button. It gives me the CRC code, which I will write down here. Okay, that's good for my records. Now it's writing that configuration. We'll give it a second here. As this is going, I will say that after it writes the configuration, it's going to have a red light on your PSR modular. You can either remove power to reset it, or you can click on the reset and restart button up at the top, the disconnect and reset button. So once the configuration is saved, I will be able to do that. It's almost there. All right, save successfusly. Now, again, I have a red light. You can't see it, but there is one. I'm going to hit disconnect and restart. Once I hit that, my PSR modular will disconnect and restart itself, and it got all green lights over here, so I'm looking good. So pretty good stuff there. If you have any questions on where to get this software or how to get it, you can go to the product page. So this is the B1 product page. I have the part number here. I'm using a push-in version of it. But if you go to the product page, go to downloads. At the very bottom, you'll see the software, PSR modular, we're at 1.7.2.1_2. So, and then I get a lot of questions about this here. It's only available for registered users. The reason this is done is because we want to make sure we can notify anybody that downloads the safety software of any problems or issues in the future. And all that means is you need to log in to our website. I won't step you through that, but just know that you have to log in. If you don't have a registered address yet, it just takes an email, and then you should be registered within 24 hours, and you can download the software. So it's an easy way to get that PSR modular software. The other thing that we'll want is any files associated with our gateway. So before we started, I went on to the gateway page. You can see here I'm using a PROFINET gateway. Under the download section, you have the data sheet and the manual for everything that you would need to know. And then at, oops, I passed it, I'm sorry. So we have our Gstml file here for the PROFINET side. You don't need to get a Gstml for everything, but if there is file requirements for your specific protocol, they will be on this device description page. Then if you're also trying to integrate into different controllers, we do have some videos here. So in English and in German for both PROFINET on the TIA portal and the PLCnext. We'll actually be watching this video shortly on this stream because with the luck of live presentations and connecting in through Microsoft Teams Live, I want to make sure that you can actually see what it looks like. And I've been having issues this morning running both a live event and showing a live controller. So again, this is all available on our webpage. If you're coming into this from the future and the web page looks a little different or there's a different layout, just know that the downloads, it'll still all be on there, and you can always search by the part number. So the next thing we're going to do is look at what's required on the PLCnext side. So this is my current setup that I have. I have a project already sitting here. I am connected right now to my my PSR modular and my PLCnext. But essentially, you have to have a PLCnext program. If you're unfamiliar with how PLCnext works or you haven't done PLCnext, there's an excellent resource online, the PLCnext community. So www.plcnext-community.net. And that is full of tons of resources. If you're using the PLCnext starter kit, there is a walkthrough guide on that page. It'll take you through, it'll help you, you'll download your own program. That's where I started with this. So I started with my own program on the starter kit, and I can go through and change variables as I need to. A couple of things to highlight here. When you get started, you want to make sure your IP address matches your computer address. Again, this is all basics and covered in that online stuff, but I just want to highlight it. You won't be able to connect to your controller unless your computer IP address is in the same range as your controller. And then the last thing is importing the Gstml files. So to import, you just go to File, Import, and then you see the different types of files that you can import here. That's going to be covered in the video shortly. So after you get yourself connected, make sure that if you're using PLCnext and you're using a 2152 or an 1152 or a 3152, that you check not only your firmware version of the controller, but make sure you're using the most up-to-date PLCnext Engineer software suite. There are quarterly updates that come out, and you want to make sure that you're running the latest version of all the software to make sure there's no problems connecting or downloading. And in the newer versions of PLCnext, so I will go to my web page here. If you have a PLCnext controller, right, and you realize, let's go to my general data here. Oh, it's going to ask me to log in. So the good news is I wrote the password down. If you don't know what the password is for this, it will be on the front of your PLCnext controller. So I wrote mine down just so I knew it, because I knew that was going to happen while I was presenting. So if I go to my general data, you can see here I'm updated to the latest firmware version. But let's say you were back in 2019.0 or something like that, and you wanted to get to the latest firmware version, please, you can go to firmware update here, and then you can go to our website for the PLCnext 2152, and there's different firmwares that you can download here. So it's really easy to load it It takes about 10 minutes to load the firmware, but it's definitely a necessity when you're going through this. So with PLCnext, again, I have a setup here. One things I did create beforehand was a project and a couple of variables. So let me go into my variables here. So I'm in my PSR modular. No, I'm in my, where are we at? PLCnext. So here's PLCnext, PSR modular. So I already set up my program. If I look at my parameters, and I think I hit the wrong button, I did. Let me go to our variable lists. Let's get back into that. So data list, this is for the controller itself. Oops. So I've done some process data already. You can see here I have PSR modular status already connected in. Oops, I hit the wrong button. So PSL, and now I lost it all. So I created a simple program, and PSR modular status is down here. If I get to the bottom, there we go. So I have an in byte for all of my inputs, and I have an output byte for all of my outputs. This is pretty easy stuff. Again, it's basic PLCnext software configuration. So if you've been in the engineer and you know what you're doing, this should all look familiar to you. If you haven't done any 2152, highly recommend that you get the software. PLCnext Engineer is a free tool. You can download it, use it, program with it, and then you would just need to connect it to hardware to actually test it. So it's easy to use. There's a lot of knowledge on that resource base for the PLCnext community. And I'm gonna switch over to the video here, and then we'll come back and look at some stuff when we get back. So let's look at the video.
Hello, today I would like to show you the integration of the PROFINET gateway of PSR Modular into the PLCnext Engineer software. So first we will look into the integration in the PLCnext Engineer, and in the second step we will go online. First we will select the controller. In this case we have used an AXC1152. In the first step we will open the project now, and in this project we now look under online devices. Set the network card correctly and search according to the online devices. So we select the displayed control and see if the settings fit. The next step, we go to File and insert the device description file if it's not yet integrated in the software. This file is on our desktop. The device description file is stored in the eShop under the corresponding gateway. The file has now been installed, and we are now looking at how we can integrate it. Via PROFINET, we can integrate it automatically by going to Online Devices and searching for the online devices. Now we select the gateway and add the device via the corresponding button. The module has now been automatically integrated into the PROFINET communication. Now we still have the possibility to change the IP address, the subnet mask, and the PROFINET name. Via the fieldbus inputs and system I/O modules, we can now look into the data in detail and view it once. In the button Data List, we see all the variables. These are described exactly, and you can find them again one by one. It is the same with the system I/O data. Even if we look at the data list here, we see that the data are completely written out. In order to go online now, we have to link the existing process data with variables. I've prepared a list here, and we now link it with the process data. To do this, we can now simply click on the right and use the drag and drop to find the system data. I have now done this once for all data, and we now go online to the module. For this we use Connect and then Write and Start Project. Now we are online on the project and we can already see the online values here. We now look at the input data and see that the system status is set. The input is set in the same way. We let it toggle by removing and adding the bit. I put the input signal on an output, and so we see in the lower part that this output is toggling as well. Yeah, this was already the integration of the PROFINET gateway into the PLCnext controller. You can find further information in the manual and datasheets on our website.
Okay, so Karsten went through it there. That was pretty quick and easy. It is quite painless to do this, especially on PROFINET because everything automatically connects. I did not go through and do all of the bits that Karsten was doing or the bytes here, but you can see I have the same system that he has set up here. So if I go into my my IOs here, you can see I have it set as, ooh, it went away. So you can see I've had some status things added here. My inputs bit I put in here, my output bit I put in here as well. And then you can click on this here once you're live to see the status of what's going on. So if I go to debug, you can see right on the site here, the status. And of course, you have to connect a bit in order for it, or a byte for it to be shown as status locally. So for these external bits that we did, EI, EQ, remember we saw that in the software. So EI here, EQ here, they represent the bits that you would get and use in your programming here. So again, EI, EQ, external output is Q, EQ, external input is EI. I did not set variables for those yet, but if I wanted to, I could go in and then see those variables. So the last part that some people have issues with is configuring this. They see the software, they downloaded the software, and now they're thinking, okay, that's a great walkthrough, Zach, or everybody has told me about a bus conf software. Where do I find that? Where do I download it? So the good news is you don't need to find it anywhere or download it anywhere. When you download PSR modular software, so I'm here in my program files, it'll save program files, Phoenix Contact PSR modular, PSR Phoenix 1.7.2. When you do that, it also saves this bus configurator Phoenix 4.2.3. So if I go in there, bus configurator user interface, all I'll need to do is double click on that. So when I do that, I will get the bus configurator software to pop up on my screen. And now I just need to switch over my USB from my PSR modular to my gateway, which I'm doing. I've now connected into my gateway. I can hit connect. So I've connected in. You can see I have a couple of things already set here. I've already selected the IP address. It's nice on PROFINET. You can actually just do it automatically. It'll connect. But you can see it also gives me diagnostic information on this splash screen. So if you had somebody that was working on a program and say they didn't let you have access to the actual program file itself, and you couldn't see what was going on, they didn't set up an HMI or anything like that with the parameters, you could come with a laptop, connect in to the front of the gateway module via USB, so no need to go in through Ethernet or use their network, so completely secure here. And you can actually go in and see the status of what's going on. So if I toggle my e-stop, you can see input state here is going to drop out. And if you recall, my output state as well should drop out for that. So they were tied basically 1-to-1 there. I'll bring it back on. So the next thing I'm going to do is force an error, and you can see some of the data that you'll get on this splash screen as well. So give me 1 second to force an error. I can do that by taking out one of the inputs. So I took out an input. You can see now that, oh, did I still have it done? No, I did not connect. Let's connect back up again. Yep. It's giving me the error on the front. I don't know what's going on with this at the moment, but it should have been flashing an error on me. Let's check my project one more time. So input, e-stop, EQ should be going high. Okay. Let's go back to the bus configurator. So I have it there. I'm good. E-stop in and out. Try this one more time. Oh, I know. I think I took out the wrong thing. Let's try it one more time. What's up? Back in. So there we go. So I put my input out separately from my the other side. So one input came undone, the other one went back in. You can see input not restored, which means that when I went into my software, what I did essentially was I took this out and plugged it back in without them switching together, which gives me an error. So when I go back to my bus conf software, it shows me that I have an error. It's not restored. All I have to do is make sure that they switch together. So my external output state will then turn off. When I do this, come back on, and now I can see what's going on. And again, all this information gets mapped back to your controller as well. So I'm looking at the Q&A. I see that we're pretty clear on Q&A. I just want to remind everybody and thank you again for listening in live. If you have any questions about PSR Modular software, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local salesperson. You can also contact me directly, zstank@phoenixcontact.com. Again, call into our technical service group. They are more than happy to help you get started with your project or help you with anything that you might be working on. I put some links in the chat there, so phoenixcontact.com/us-webinars. It's a great utility to go to. You can send customers to that website to look at all the different technologies that we have and also look at some of the upcoming webinars that we'll be running. And then the PLCnext community, plcnext-community.net. It's a great resource for anything and everything you're doing PLCnext. It's a great way to get started, and it's an excellent utility for anybody looking to do PSR modular within PLCnext. All right, and since I don't see any questions in chat, I'll assume that everybody's doing okay, or I answered all the questions as they were coming in. I want to thank you all again for joining me today. I look to see you on the next one, and have a great day.